Welcome to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, where we talk about homesteading stuff and life stuff and everything in between. Join me, Amy Dingman, as we explore big questions on a little farm. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, where we talk about farmish stuff and not so farmish stuff, which you all know is just known as life. Thank you so much for joining me here at episode 259. Today is December 11th, 2023. If you are listening to this right when it comes out, that means there is 2 weeks until Christmas. There are 2 weeks until Christmas. Use proper grammar there, Amy. All right, what are we going to be talking about today? Today's topic has to do with some Christmas stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about the magic of Christmas and how some people really think that the magic of Christmas and the Christmas season is all in those Christmases from long ago, the Christmases that we have memories of, Christmases from a more simple time. And we're going to talk today about how there's still magic in Christmas. We're going to have a little honest chat about that and where you can find that. Before we get to that, what has been happening on the Lifestead? Well, over the weekend, I judged a parade. Now, if you are not from Minnesota, not from the cold states, you're wondering why is there a parade? Why is there a parade in the winter when there's snow and it is cold and it is windy and there's ice on the ground? Why are you having a parade? A parade is supposed to be a summer thing, right? No, here in Minnesota, we have parades in the winter as well. And we get all bundled up and we put lights all over our floats and we have a wonderful time. And I got to be a judge for one of the local parades. So that was super fun. Got together with some other friends and we judged this parade, had a wonderful time, got to see some great festive floats. And it was just a really good time, a lovely way to celebrate the season, I suppose. What else has been happening? I have been doing a lot of baking, obviously, because of the season. I've been doing a lot of bread and buns and caramel rolls. I did a little delivery of caramel rolls to some people, bring them a little joy while they were working. And the funny thing is that I made a big batch of caramel rolls and I kind of had them separated into little containers of like 4 rolls in each container so I could just easily give them out to the people that I was delivering to. Well, I had an extra container that was not delivered because the person I thought I was going to deliver it to was not at their place of employment. So I had this extra little package of caramel rolls, and who should show up in my driveway but a delivery person, a FedEx delivery driver. And this FedEx lady is bringing this package to my door. And I said to her, okay, you might think that this is a really weird question, but I have to ask you something. And she kind of looks at me weird. She's like, okay. And I said, do you like caramel rolls? And she looks at me and she says, yeah. And I said, would you like some caramel rolls? And she's kind of looking at me like, I don't know what I'm supposed to say here. And I said, I just baked a whole bunch of caramel rolls today, and I have 1 container left to give out. And do you want them? And she looked at me and she said, oh my God, yes, I would love some caramel rolls. And I said, they are still warm. And it was just this very magical moment of being able to give a little joy to the delivery drivers who are working their tails off right now. You all be kind to your delivery drivers, your Amazon, FedEx, UPS, USPS, all the people bringing you all the packages. They are basically Santa this time of year, y'all. They are basically Santa, so be kind. What else has been happening? Well, things have been getting kind of crazy in my garage. We went out to split wood the other day, and I decided I was going to use a splitting maul instead of our wood splitter. We have a hydraulic wood splitter, whatever you want to call it, which is wonderful because it makes the job go so much faster, especially when you have the really, really big logs. But I decided I wanted to go out and I wanted to work on some splitting some wood. And so I took the splitting maul out there and I'm trying to whack away at these logs. And it's going okay. But my husband looks at me, he's doing some other stuff. And he said, you know, that splitting maul could probably stand to be sharpened. It hasn't been sharpened since before we moved to the farm. We've been using it all this time. It's basically at this point like trying to drive a hammer into a log. Like we're not really splitting it as efficiently as we could be. And so he said, maybe we should sharpen that maul. And I said, you know what? Maybe you should show me how to do that. And so we went in the garage and he showed me how to sharpen the maul. And with them all, you don't have to put a really super sharp edge on. Obviously, there's a way that a maul works that is different than an axe, that is different in, it's this whole science thing in angles and geometry. So whatever, I'm sharpening this maul and I'm getting really into it. I'm like, I really like this. Now, if you guys have been following me on social media, you know that I'm into like the show Forged in Fire, which is a reality show. And I know, there's a whole thing with reality shows, but I love watching Forged in Fire because regardless of what part of it is real or what is scripted or whatever, they make really cool, sharp stuff. And I love watching that. And so I'm into that. I'm into, talking about wanting to get into making my own sharp items and having a forge and doing all of that really cool blacksmithing stuff, right? So I'm sharpening this maul and I'm getting really excited. And I said, is there anything else I can sharpen, to my husband? And he jokingly says, well, yeah, there's this really old double axe head over here in the corner of the garage that I don't really know where it came from. And I think there's a handle that we have for it. But like this axe head is so rusty, and it just like it's this forgotten axe head that was just in the corner of our garage. And I said, I want to restore that. And it turned in this whole thing where, I'm figuring out how to get the rust off and like how to fix everything and then how to put an edge back on this double bit. And it was so fun. And then we found a machete. And then we found an axe head out in one of our back sheds that had a broken handle attached to it. So we actually had to get the handle out of the axe head, right? And then, go from there. And man, it was exciting trying to get that broken handle out. But I got it out. And if you've been following me on social media, you've seen the process of all of these things and you see how excited I get. So that's something that is really very exciting to me right now, is dealing with these rusty, broken, no longer sharp items and getting them back to what they should be. And I don't know why this is so exciting and fulfilling to me, but y'all, it's so much fun. And it's a lot of fun to be in the garage with my husband, or I guess we should call it his shop, because I don't know that we've ever parked a vehicle in this building. It has always been a place to build stuff. So, let's call it a shop. But it's so fun to be out there with him and like using all those tools and having him just look at me like, oh my gosh, you're so crazy. But having the best time and just being able to have that romantic date together and him to teach me the things he knows and me to try and figure out what the hell I'm doing. And so it's been very fun. So that has been another exciting thing that's been happening on the Lifestead. All right, enough talk about sharp, rusty, or not sharp, rusty things, I should say. Let's talk about this Christmas thing. Let's go over to the main topic and about how Christmas is still magical. Now, this is the time of year when we start seeing a lot of posts about how the magic of Christmas is kind of lost, right? And how Christmases we remember are better than the Christmases we have today. People will talk about that, how Christmas was so much more exciting and magical and wonderful and less stressful back in the day, right? Christmas used to be more magical. It used to be more simple. It used to be more of everything we feel like we're lacking right now and everything we fear that we're going to miss with Christmases of the future. But my question is, were Christmases of the past, whether we're talking 5 years ago or 105 years ago, were they more simple? Were they more magical? Now, I personally think that's up for debate. And I think there's a couple reasons that we do this whole, everything was simpler back then, Christmas was more magical back then. First, I think when we look back to our childhood Christmases, we don't realize half of what was going on. When you're a kid, you're down in the basement and you're playing with your cousins and it's magical, right? You're not involved in the argument upstairs about the gravy or who brought what salad. And you have no idea that your Uncle Jerry has showed up 3 sheets to the wind. You have no idea. As a kid, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And you lose that when you grow up. Because you grow up and you figure out what's going on behind the scenes. So you lose some magic there, right? Secondly, even if we're not looking all the way back to childhood, I think we tend to fuzz over a lot of the stuff that was in the background. Time heals all wounds. It erases all the financial issues. It eradicates all the things that were said. All we know is that 8 years ago, Grandma was still alive and she made the best chocolate cream pie, and therefore it was magical. That's how we think about Christmases of the past. Now, while Christmases of the past obviously didn't have the notifications and the screens and all the other distractions that we have today, I think they still held their own difficulties and their own annoyances. And I think those annoyances and difficulties, they really only make sense when they're compared against the backdrop of the time that they're in. So, meaning, if someone from a time that we feel was more simple dropped in on our activities this month, I think some of them might think that we are absolutely living the life and we are in the middle of the best Christmas ever. And then they'd sit down and make a list of all the past annoyances and difficulties and stressors that we don't have to deal with anymore. And so they're thinking, wow, you guys are having a kick-ass Christmas because here's all the things that you don't have to deal with, or here's all the stress that's not a part of your life anymore. Or do you know what I'm saying? And ultimately, that's the problem with what was versus what is. There are always a few stipulations that we forget exist or existed to make either of the realities possible. We forget all the stuff that was back then and all the stuff that is now. We can't really compare them. They're two different things. And the funny thing is while I was thinking about all this Christmases of long ago thing, I was scrolling through social media and I came across another post that showed this Christmas morning. It was a picture of a Christmas morning in 1920, and it was two children holding a toy that they had just opened, and they were standing in front of their Christmas tree. And the comment section attached to this post was absolutely ablaze with conversation about how this picture could not have been real because 1920 was back when folks were dirt poor, and wasn't that in the Great Depression anyway? Like, this was the conversation in the comments of this picture. And I bring this up because I think sometimes we like to paint Christmases of the past as we want them to be, not what they actually were. They were all simple Christmases where no one had anything and they were just happy to be together, right? Sometimes romanticizing the simple life takes our assumptions about how it actually was. It takes those assumptions completely off base. And other times we're just confused about history in general, right? Because we all know, I'm assuming most of the people listening to this know that the Great Depression started almost a decade after that 1920 Christmas morning picture was taken. And that's not to say that everyone pre-Great Depression was rolling in the dough, right? But it's to say that not everyone wasn't. Do you know what I'm saying? So what about right now? Well, my friend Tom from Small Scale Gardening reminded me of something really important. We were in a conversation and we got talking about this, and he reminded me of something that's really kind of the kicker of this whole thing. These days right here, this holiday right now is someone's magic. There are people in your life who will look back on these days right here, this Christmas right here, and they will talk about how simple and how magical it was, and how fun it was, and how wonderful the celebrations made them feel. There are people that will talk about this Christmas right now, 50 years from now. Isn't that hard to wrap your head around? Christmas has always been a time of hustle and bustle and special extravagance, even if that has meant something completely different throughout the years, even if the definition of that has been different throughout the years. Every decade of every family has experienced its own difficulties. And I think Christmas was this way to step away from that, no matter what that meant at the time. And maybe the magic is the step away to something different and to something special. It's forgetting the mess or the chaos of life, whether it's 1880 or 1980 or present day. Eating food and sharing conversation and being together, however it works for the time in question, and knowing that it's going to be this great memory to look back on later. But as I was thinking through all of this, I came to even another thought. And here's a question that I think we need to think about. Do you think that in the hustle and the bustle of Christmas 10 or 25 or 50 years ago, your parents, your grandparents, your uncles, your aunts, your cousins had any idea what specific things they were even doing to create a memory? Or were they just trying to get the mashed potatoes and the special silverware on the table? Which is so strange, because when I think back to Christmas Eves at my grandpa's house a million years ago, that's what I remember. Mashed potatoes and gold forks and spoons and knives. And the dish of old-fashioned candy that sat on the corner of their buffet. And the Reader's Digest condensed books that I would pull off the shelf and read, because all the adults were talking about boring adult stuff and I wanted something else to do. And so I would go pull these books off of the ledge. Those are the things I remember. Isn't that wild? We try so hard to make Christmas special because we want it to be the same kind of special of the Christmases we remember. And what I don't think we realize is that many of the things that we remember fondly from Christmases past aren't even things that people tried to create for us as memories. And I think that's a really big point, so I'm going to say that again. What we don't realize is that many of the things we remember fondly from Christmases past aren't even the things people tried to create for us as memories. This time right now will be what someone looks back on later, just like you are looking back on Christmases of the past. This Christmas right here will very soon be a Christmas of the past, and yet we will remember bits and pieces of it and string it into its own kind of magic that we look back on fondly and wish we could recreate. The purpose of this episode here is twofold. First, realize there is magic in the everyday of the Christmas season just by being together and doing Christmas together. Secondly, what we're trying to create, what we're trying to get back to, might be some jumbled fantasy in our mind that wasn't even what the people of our Christmases past were trying to create. And maybe that is the ticket. Christmas was special. It was special food and it was events and it was a step away from the everyday. But are we missing what we're trying to get back to because we don't realize it wasn't necessarily something they were trying to fabricate or create? There's a difference in getting together and turning getting together into a thing. There is a difference in celebrating Christmas and turning the celebration of Christmas into a thing. Does that make sense? Sometimes you're going to spend all your time making sure the lights and the decorations and the presents are just so. But the memory and the magic will end up being some random thing you weren't even focused on and you didn't even realize you were doing. Just like the mashed potatoes at Christmas Eve at my grandpa's house a million years ago. Why do I remember the mashed potatoes? Why do I remember gold forks and spoons and knives on the table? Why is that what I remember? I don't know that that's what Grandma and Grandpa were going for when they were trying to create a magical Christmas, but that's what I remember, and I think that there's a lesson in that. Don't forget that the magic is present just as much now as it was then. Don't miss out on what's in front of you as you try to gain back what you imagine happened long ago. I hope you guys have an awesome week as we are jumping further into the chaos and the hustle and bustle of this season. And I hope that in the hustle and bustle of the season, you can take it for what it is and you can find the magic in what is all around you and just be present with all of that and not try to make it something that it's not. Because honestly, the things that we're all going to remember from this Christmas right here is probably not all the stuff that we're stressing about and that we're trying to make into a certain thing. It might be the mashed potatoes. It might be the silverware. It might be the dish of candy. You never know what it's going to be. But I can almost guarantee you it's not going to be the things that you're stressing out about that you think are going to be the things that your kids or you or whoever is going to remember. How many of the presents that you've received over the years do you remember? How much do we stress about getting the perfect gift for someone? How many of those perfect gifts that were purchased for you do you remember? It's more than that. It's more than that. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I appreciate you being here. I know you are taking time out of your busy day to listen to my words here. I hope they are helpful. I hope they give you something to think about. Thanks for hanging out here, and I will talk to you again soon. Hope you enjoyed the show today. To continue the conversation, visit our website at afarmishkindoflife.com, find A Farmish Kind of Life on social media, or drop me an email at amy@afarmishkindoflife.com. Peace, love, and bacon, y'all. Stay farmish.